say, silly games of second guessing. I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn, because one street over there's a life I could have known, would have kept me from the one I had today.
The voice out this morning. Got a little bit of laryngitis going on. Thank you for joining us again. If you missed it, this is 1100 WSGI. I'm Utah LaVern, and this is one street over. Welcome to it. No, I'm not sick. You know, just sometimes you lose your voice with allergies and all that. I was a little under the weather last week, and it's just now starting to sound like it, but I'm doing all right, guys. I'm not spreading I don't have fever and all those kinds of things we have to watch before we go into school, so I'm good. And I'm expecting Senator Kerry Roberts. Don't want to get him sick. Come on in here, but I'm not sick. I just don't have a voice this morning, so come on in here, brother. Senator Kerry Roberts is in the house. I just, I might should have called Lee Marie to come in and fill in for me since I'm having to strain my voice a little bit, but I didn't want to miss talking to you. My goodness, I haven't seen you in forever. How are you doing? Let me turn your microphone up here. That might help.
I'm fine, but how are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
You don't sound normal.
No, I don't have a fever. I've checked it multiple times. I had a little bit. I was a little sick. I got started getting sick last Wednesday at school. Went home, went to bed. Had a little bit of fever that night, but then I was fine. But we're here at the end of school, and there's so much going on, and I just don't have time to not be at school because I got too much to finish up. I mean, it's just crazy. I've got seniors in my homeroom, in my cat time, we call it. Mm-hmm. And so today is, if they don't have to take finals, we have a thing where you can be final exempt if you haven't missed too many days and if you have a certain grade. So if you're finals exempt, they've only got 8 days. Mm-hmm. Now if they've got to take finals, they'll have to come through Friday, so they have 10 days counting today. And then the rest of us have 20 days counting today if you take finals. So we're about to end. There's so much to do. How are you doing?
I'm good.
So, are we done? I'm so busy with school. I mean, where are we in the legislative session? There's a couple of things I want to ask you about. I thought you were done. Yeah. When did y'all finish up?
Tuesday. No, was it Tuesday or Wednesday? I don't know.
Sometimes I try to pay attention to it, but sometimes there'll be something that it's like, well, we got to go back and we got to do this and we got to do that. So you just finished. Yeah. Okay. What'd you do?
Too much.
Okay.
Not enough.
So let's start with the education side of it. Now, there's some things we got to cover too. I'm going to talk about National Day of Prayer. This is Thursday. We got stuff going on. I've got to talk about Bernard Farms and Barry and Rebecca Richards and all the things. So we'll get to all of that. So y'all stay with us.
And I have to leave at 10 till.
10 till. So, okay. So we'll kind of save all the National Day of Prayer stuff for then. So from an educator perspective, one of the first things that I heard from my kiddos, Miss Vivio, they've passed a new law about phones and all of that. But when I read it, it really sounds like the policy that we have in the county already. Yeah. Isn't it, basically?
It's look, here's the bottom line. Did you have a phone with you when you were in school?
No.
Okay. So if you're around teenagers, college students, millennials, you go out to eat dinner, you try to teach Bible class, what do you do? What is everybody doing?
Put your phones up.
Looking at their phone. They're looking at their phone, right? And
their Bible, talking about Bible class, a lot of the educational material is on their phone.
But which is probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
Because then you get text messages and you get emails and you get distracted and you look up you Google something that you don't really need to know right then and there. Mm-hmm. And, it hurts. I can't, I'm not, somebody who studies this would be the right person to ask, but you can't tell me that, let me ask you this. Be still and know what?
That I am God.
Right. Be still and know that I'm God. And so when are we still?
Never.
So, look, kids are upset about it because the phone is their, it becomes their security blanket, like a lot of adults. I went yesterday, I didn't even have my phone with me most of the day yesterday, and I thought, I can't remember the last time I did that.
It's nice. It really is.
I put my phone in airplane mode at night because there are those people who will text me at 2 o'clock in the morning as if there's nothing better to do, and or even call, at 1 o'clock. And I've given my number out to too many people.
Right.
So when I go to bed, it's in airplane mode, and then in the morning when I feel like seeing who texted me at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll take it out of airplane mode.
Right.
So,
I will take and turn mine off, and I keep it in do not disturb most of the time, simply because I'm either in the classroom, I'm here, or I'm driving. And I'm just very rarely where I can take it off. My kids are always take your phone off, do not disturb, mother. And I'm like, they'll call me in the middle of the day when I'm in school, and why are you calling me at 10 a.m. During school? So
well, you can be the distractor,
Yeah.
or you can be the distractee.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's the fastest way to solve that is not have your phone with you in the first place. And the arguments are, well, what if there's an emergency? What if there's a school
that's the
shooting? What if there's
kids'
this? What if
thing.
there's that?
They all say
And
that.
it's I understand all of that, but that's making policy for outlier situations is generally doesn't have a tendency to be a good idea.
Right.
It can be, but not always. So anyway, I just see that as uh, your complaint is noted, but still, and it's time to put them up.
I agree. It is such a distraction to the classroom, and we've had a county policy that we're supposed to take them up, and I need them sometimes with what we're doing, and
Yeah.
we will use them when we first started the program before we got cameras, things like that. We would use these to go out and record, and these are still one of the best cameras ever.
Mhm.
And we have we have the little tripods for them and things like that. We have special microphones that plug into them. So they're a tool in our classroom as far as audio and video, but it's becoming less so now that we've got more equipment. And so I take them up kind of as a general rule now, because if we need them, you can get them.
Well, let me
But
tell
right
you.
now, we don't really need them.
Let me tell you, if I had to do over again, I would probably tell my kids, you can have a phone when you can pay for it,
Right.
and not get them a phone. And then I'm sure somebody somewhere makes a phone that doesn't even allow texting.
Right.
I mean, if I could switch to a mobile phone right now, that didn't allow anything but phone calls, I would do it. The problem is, I've had my smartphone died once upon a time, so I went back to an old flip phone, and I ran into three problems. Number one is there's no automatic reply on a text message saying, I have a stupid phone now, I can't text you.
Mhm.
Number one. Number two, I was limited to 250 contacts, and I probably have 4,000 or 5,000. And number three, you can't map. And a lot of the complication of my schedule with almost 3,000 square miles is
Right.
trying to figure out how to get from this meeting to that meeting
Mhm.
and not be late.
Well, and I discovered mapping when I was down in Texas when I was working at the
Mhm.
Blaze. And if I had not had that, I would have been I was actually, the day I pulled in, the day that I was getting ready to start down there, I had not discovered mapping yet, and I could not find where I was supposed to go. And I was talking to one of my kids, Mother, you need to do this, Google Maps. And I mean, he was just adamant. It was kind of the same kind of conversation I was having with my dad right before he died. Dad, you need to get online. You're going to be blown away by the internet, right?
Yeah.
And so it was almost that him trying to bring me into the next thing. And it's like, Mother, you won't believe. And he talked me through it, sitting there in a parking lot. And I was like, oh my goodness. And it was that having to do it. And so I'm with you, mapping, I've got to have it.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's when a lot of times people ask me to come to things, and it's not, the conflict isn't that I have another luncheon appointment, whatever. It's
Yeah.
that I can't drive from here to there and get there on time.
right.
And
Right.
I can spend half my day driving
Well, I can
easily,
imagine.
or more.
Well,
Well,
you
if I
figure,
go to Johnsonville or Waverly,
Right.
I mean that's almost 4 hours of driving plus
So-
your meeting time.
how many counties do you cover as a senator?
I have 5 full counties and then part of Montgomery County. So
I can't imagine.
5 point whatever.
I can't imagine, because that's one thing people don't understand is you've got, people will say, and I'm just going to say this, but I know Sabi, he covers Robertson County, so he can be at everything. Well, we're Senator Roberts. Well, he's got 5 full counties plus another one, and so he has to do what the person who's representing that county does in that entire area. And having ran for Congress, I still can't believe that seems like a different lifetime, but having ran for a congressional seat, having to go to the Upper Cumberland and all these counties that it covered, it was incredible. I mean, the amount of miles that I covered, and just, it was breathtaking. And I just can't even imagine.
I have to give let me give a shout out from a blast from the past. Okay.
Okay.
When Josh Evans was a representative, he I think very early on when I got elected, I took Diane Black's place,
Right.
and he basically said, you're not going to be able to be at everything, and I'll cover for you. And I will tell you this, and Josh, if you hear this or you're listening, here's something he did extremely well. He always covered for me.
That's awesome.
He would tell people, he would speak on behalf of myself and Senator Roberts, and
Right.
and that's a
He was
critical-
serving as the representative at that
Yes,
time.
yeah. He was
Yeah.
was Dr. Kumar's predecessor, and I have 5 different House members that I have to work with,
Mhm.
and it's just absolutely you can't do your job without a good House member, and of course, everybody's a little bit different on their personality, but that is absolutely critical. And there will be people who call me and say, "Are you going to be at such and such thing?" And it's like, we didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
Well, I told your House member. And if that legislative assistant for the House member, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and there's good ones, there's bad ones. If they don't call and tell us, I'm just telling you, anybody listening right now, if you think that somebody else is going to tell me that something's going on, don't make that assumption. Call the office and let Lisa know.
Right.
And it's critically important. We miss a lot of things because somebody says, "Well, I told so and so," and then we didn't know about it.
Right.
And it's frustrating sometimes that, I mean, it's really important to have that kind of help. And if someone doesn't view it as a collaborative effort, then it ends up making both of us look bad. And I'm telling you, I've had people very irritated with me, but then when they find out that a House member didn't tell me, they're extra irritated at the House member. And it's a process, and sometimes it's it's a hard thing to do. And I'm not trying to be, please don't misunderstand me, I'm not trying
I
to be
started
critical of
it.
anyone.
I started it because I know how busy
Well,
you are. And,
But the point that I want to make is there's a whole lot of
I brought
people
it
that
up.
have to do
right.
a whole lot of things well, and like when you have, for example, if you have a new legislative assistant, they may not know that.
Right.
So there's a lot of people that are involved in the process, and it requires everybody working well together. And I will say that includes my office too, because if we get told something like there was something, this happens more than it needs to. Somebody told me about something Saturday night, and I beg people to call the office and tell the office because I'm driving or
Right.
something. I can't stop and put a calendar event on my phone. And so Saturday night, 5:30 on Saturday, I get a phone call. "Are you coming to such and such?"
Yep.
It never even made it on my calendar because somebody told me about it. I said, "Yeah, I'd love to come to that," and I was driving. Totally on me.
That happens to me sometimes when I'm scheduling the show. Is somebody will call me, and I have disabled. See, you were talking about the text messages and all that, and prefer having a conversation. I like text message because I can go back and look at it when I get to my calendar.
Yeah.
Because if I'm having a conversation with them, I will get distracted and I will forget, and I'll forget to put it on my calendar for somebody that's going to come in. And I've had, anybody that's watched this show consistently knows there's been times I have 2 guests show up at the same time because I forgot to write one down when I got to my destination. And so I like those texts, and I have disabled my voicemail. It's like if you can't give me, text me, and that way at least I've got a kind of a written record of it. I encourage them to email me too. But I'm telling you, keeping a calendar, I cannot imagine your schedule. I really can't. But that's only because
generally can't.
I put my toe in the water with
Yeah.
the election that I was in, and just how exhausting that was. So I understand. I mean, I'm so glad we were able to get you back in here. We have missed having you in here. But we do know how busy you are, so thank you for your time. I do appreciate
Well,
that.
I'm very glad to be here, and it hopefully with session being over, time will get a little bit more.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, with all that said, so I asked about the phone. There was a law that says the kids can't have their phone. Well, we already have a rule here in the county that reads pretty much the same. We've got to enforce it. That's a big thing. And that's kind of where I'm doubling down with my kids. I'm like, this is now a state law. This is not a Board of Education or, our county board telling us not to. It's a state law.
Yeah, but let me make.
We
this
got to
point,
deal
though.
with these phones.
Things. I'm just going to tell you, I voted for it, but things like that irritate me because why are we creating a state law?
Okay.
Let the school system do it, and I'm all in favor
Okay.
of it. But we complain all the time that Washington tells us what to do, and then we turn around and do the very same thing.
Well,
And
okay.
you got 147 local education associations. Let them deal with it.
Well, and we have here, we've got it, but it's just,
I know.
it's very hard to enforce.
That's
It
right.
is a hard thing to enforce. And
And guess what? It's still going to be a hard thing to enforce.
Yeah.
And you can say it's a state law, and sometimes when it is a state law, people see that as more distant.
right.
What are you going to do? Call the police? And so it's I don't know. I think we passed 600 laws this past session. It would be fine with me if we passed 60.
Yeah.
It might be fine with me if we passed 5. It's we've got a whole lot of laws that get ignored. Let me give you an example. This is one I got some criticism on. I did not vote for a law. The news media called it the Glock switch. Do you know what
Okay.
that is? Where
I
you can
do
turn.
not.
It's where you can turn something basically into a machine gun, right? It's like a repeater, so you can take a Glock and put an extended capacity in it, and if you pull the trigger, it'll just keep whatever. Okay. First of all, those are already illegal from a federal standpoint. So if you have one, you can be subject to federal charges. So why do we need a state law doing the same thing? Well, the people say, well, it's so we can charge somebody from a state standpoint. Okay. So we can arrest them from a state standpoint, charge them from a state standpoint. But it's a federal law and it's federal purview. Why are we worried about it? Number one. Number two, they light these bills up like a Christmas tree and they put other stuff in it. Okay, now let me ask you a question. If you had a child that was killed in a drive-by shooting, okay, or in a shooting, do you think the punishment for the murderer of your child should be any different because they shot your child from a car or they shot your child from a street corner? Should it matter where they are?
No.
Okay. Well, okay, we have these stupid bills that say, because we're going to eliminate drive-by shootings. They don't eliminate anything. Laws don't stop crime. Liberals, conservatives, wake up and recognize that passing a law does not stop crime. We've got Robertson County Jail with plenty of people in it. Every county in the state has a jail full of people. We've got Turney Center, Trousdale Turner, all these other places that are full of people. And these people are charged with crimes that some politician at some point in time gave a speech that said, well, if we pass this law, it'll stop this. And it didn't stop anything. I mean, does speed limit sign out there stop speeding?
No.
No. All we do is we just give the DAs something to prosecute with, the judges something to judge with. All right. So if your child gets killed and you find out that the murderer of your child is only going to go to jail for a few years, but the murderer of somebody else's child is going to go to jail for a whole lot longer because they shot your child from a car, It's not fair to the victim.
Mm.
It's not fair to the victim's family. You know, I mean, nobody cares about this, but that's not fair to the perpetrator. That under one set of circumstance I get charged this, and under another set. And let me tell you what gang member out there even knows that there's a sentence enhancement if you do it from a car?
They don't.
Okay, well, first of all, they're killing somebody, which is against the law, and they don't care. So you think they're going to care if they do it from a street corner or from a car? No, they're going to do whatever's expedient, and for their purposes. So I get irritated with stuff like that. So I didn't vote for it. And someone's like, how can you vote for machine guns? And it's like, they're already illegal. We're going to make it more illegal. So, and then the last paragraph of it was a sentence enhancement for 100% served. And I just thought, I'm not going to have two yardsticks of justice here. Tell that to, if you had two victims, two dead children, one's from a moving car and one's from a street corner. I don't think that's right. Here's another one I didn't vote for, which I got a lot of criticism for. There were two bills that, first of all, let me preface it with this. I'm glad Donald Trump got elected, and I'm glad that illegal border crossings have, not stopped, but just dramatically reduced. I'm glad that they're rounding up criminals who are here illegally, with emphasis on the word criminals, and deporting them. Not someone who's a criminal because they came here illegally, but somebody who is a criminal because they committed a felony offense, and they're handling that. So and hopefully the wall's getting built, although I don't know the progress of that. That was one of Trump's first term promises, and it kind of irritated me that it didn't move forward. But hopefully that's happening. So we're winning on illegal immigration. So to have a bill that says when a kid shows up at Chrysler Elementary, and they have to prove that they're here legally, or they can't enroll, or the parent has to pay tuition, or whatever the case might be. Why are we picking on kids?
I don't know.
I
don't get that.
That was a total non-starter for me. And Mark Pody and I, who are okay. The Tennessee Senate is generally regarded as one of the most conservative senates in the entire United States of America. And Mark Pody and myself are two of the most conservative members of that body. And Mark and I both just said, I have a hard time doing this as a believer.
Amen.
Jesus made a big deal about bring the children to me.
You bet.
And we don't ask for kids, legal status if you're at the emergency room and they've broken their arm or whatever. And I just, I get the argument, but we're not making Tennessee a magnet. We're just saying, it's like Ramesh Akbari, who's the Democratic leader. She said, I don't think I've ever seen a gang of 5-year-olds storm the border.
Yeah, really.
And these kids aren't here because they had any choice in the matter. They're here because they brought here, they're refugees or something like that. And I'm all in favor. I'm all in favor of holding the parents accountable for what they do, but picking on the kids, no, I couldn't do that. So I voted no for that bill.
What is the status of that?
One bill that Janice Bowling had fell apart in committee and didn't get out of committee. The other bill that's just on the Senate, so I don't know who the House sponsors were. Bo Watson, the one that he had in the Senate, actually passed the Senate, which I voted against it, but it got bogged down in the House.
Okay.
So it's just kind of stuck.
I wasn't really sure where that ended up. I had heard a little bit about it.
That's
and
yeah.
I'm with you on that. It's not the way to handle it at all.
There's to me, it's like we're winning. That's piling on.
Yeah.
That's gloating.
Yeah.
That's it's a lot of things, but we're winning on illegal immigration, and build the stinking wall
Yeah.
that has been talked about for years, going all the way back to the Reagan era, and deport the criminals and all this stuff. I mean, I know we're not here to talk about Washington, but good grief, if you ever listen, if you're a Democrat and you're cheering these judges that are stopping Trump from deporting people, then just go ahead and find your copy of the Constitution and burn it, because you don't understand the difference between the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. That's terrible, and these judges ought to be removed for what they're doing. And for the Supreme Court to even give any kind of reprieve, Alito was right. He excoriated his colleagues on the court. It's like we've got so much legal incompetence in some of these federal judges, and I got to tell you what, we have a lot of these, like in our 19th judicial district here, we have a lot of really, really good judges here. And you know what? When it comes time to appointing a federal judge, here's our bench. And what do? They go out, and they get these yahoos that are academics, or they're extreme ideologically, or they're politically connected or something. But it's like they're not like our judges. Right. Our judges wouldn't do that. Right. It's frustrating. Anytime we talk about politics,
well,
it just, everything's so negative, and I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm really a quite happy person when I'm
I
not
know
talking
you
about
are.
politics.
I want to say this about the immigration issue and the kids we're talking about, because we have a lot of Latino, Hispanic kids, and I'm super close to them because they know I go to Mexico every year and they know I love them and I care about the people that are newcomers. I'm so close with a lot of the Egyptian people, and one of the main reasons, and I may have told you this, one of the main reasons I want to go to Washington is because of the immigration policy, and like you said, stop the flood coming in.
Yeah.
Stop the anchor baby stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then also too, if you're here and you have a family here and you came here illegally, your children that were brought here underage have a path to citizenship, but not an auto citizenship. Just like my Egyptian friends, they have to pass the test and they have to be declared citizens. But if you came here illegally, you can stay with your family, have a work visa, but you never get a path to citizenship. Yeah. And to me, that fixes what we've got currently.
Yeah. So,
and listen to me, Washington, just do that. It's so simple.
Well, let me tell you, a lot of people, a lot of these people who are criticizing me for voting against this bill are going to absolutely blow a gasket when Trump does something similar to what you say now.
I hope so. I hope he does.
Where I'm going to tell you, where I depart from you is, I would say anyone who comes here illegally doesn't have a path to citizenship, but they do have a path for living a lifetime here in the United States and working, paying taxes and whatnot. So
even a kid.
I wouldn't personally. I wouldn't give it to a child who.
See, I'd be, because these kids don't know anything.
I know
I've got
they didn't.
kids in my class.
I know they didn't. But here's the thing.
This is their home.
But a parent will bring a child here if they knew that their child could get citizenship. And you do that for a child.
I would make it your grandfathered in from this date, not moving forward. Yeah. Not moving forward, but from this date forward. Yeah. I mean, from this date, like if you're here right now, this date, the day you can get this passed, then you have a path. But then if you come in illegally and bring your kids, no. Yeah.
So that would be a great, policy discussion. But let me be abundantly clear, because someone's going to quote me. If I was king for a day.
Yeah, I got you.
If I was king for a day,
right? This is under that preface.
First of all, if someone whose only illegal act was that they came here illegally. Right. That's important. So in other words, they've not committed any other crime, but being here illegally is a crime.
Is a crime. Okay. Yes.
So any other crime, no. Just that, just that. If I were king for a day, what I would do is I would give them a structure and a system where, as long as they stay out of trouble, and as long as they work, and as long as they pay their taxes, they would have some level of authority to stay here, kind of like we do with our H-2A workers or things
Right.
like that. Okay, so there'd be some mechanism by which they could stay here. Would I extend that a path to citizenship to anyone who's here illegally? No, I wouldn't. To your point about would you do that for kids, that would be a policy discussion for people to have. My default position is no. Now, why would I say that? Well, if you have 30 million people who are here illegally, or whatever the number is, it may be more, there's no mechanism in place, either legally or really from a humanitarian standpoint, to send people home. And you're going to get into this thing where, even though I'm totally with you, I don't agree with citizenship by birth. I do not believe that the Constitution of the United States was intended to take someone who does not have legal status here and they're 9 months pregnant and their baby happens to get born when they're here, that you're conferred United States. I don't believe that's what the Constitution says, and I believe Trump will be right on that. So when you end all this, but the reality of it is you have parents who don't have legal status, you have children who do, and what do you do? And it's like Rubio was saying the other day, we didn't deport children, we deported illegal parents, but their legal children opted to go with them. They didn't have to; they could have stayed with other family members, and I mean, I would want my child to go with me too, but so you've got 30 million people or whatever the number is, and there's no mechanism in place to do that. Where do you send them to? A child who came, what's home? Where's home? And so you just create a mechanism, but you get rid of the criminals, and then anybody else who stays out of trouble, then it's a privilege and a right. And the thing about it is, we live in a world that has national boundaries, and it is a privilege and a right to visit a nation or to live in a nation that you were not born into. And that's just the way it is around the world. And so all these people want, who live here in the United States, who tend to be on the far left, want to ignore that reality, that that's the way the world is. I mean, you can get in a lot of trouble trying to go into another country and stay there. And in fact, you may spend the rest of your life in jail in some countries.
Well, and
So it's,
I've had the conversation with my friends from Egypt that if I go to Egypt, several of them want me to travel with them. And I said something about if I would stand out because I'm a redhead. And they're like, you'd stand out because you're Caucasian, because there's none of you here. It's all Egyptians or people that look like them.
Yeah.
Same thing in Mexico. Very few Caucasians down there.
Yeah.
I mean, I never really thought about it until my friend mentioned that about Egypt. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it.
Let me make this observation, okay? Everybody wants to, let me say it this way. If you went to Italy, would you rather eat Italian food or McDonald's?
Italian.
Okay, right. So the fact that somehow this is portrayed as nationalism or being provincial in your thinking, it's okay for a nation to have an identity.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for a nation to have a language. It's okay for a nation to have a culture. It's okay for a nation to have music or food or arts or whatever. I mean, a national identity, national preferences. What are these people over here who decry that? What are you thinking? The people who criticize that. If I go to Honduras, if I go to Russia, if I go to Germany, if I go to China, if I go to Taiwan, if I go to Iceland, I mean, what I'm hoping is that my life is enriched by a cultural experience that's different from my own.
Mhm.
And you know what? It's quite all right. It's interesting when you go to France. Um, there's not like if you go to Italy, anybody that's under 50 years old probably speaks English because they taught English as a second language. That's not true in like France. When you still go in, especially rural France, you still run into people that don't speak English, and the internet is shrinking that. And but it's kind of cool to go to a foreign country and communicate with somebody in a different language,
Mhm.
and that's an experience that
Right.
our grandchildren are probably not going to have.
Well, if you go to Mexico with me, and you will, because it's
Yeah.
just you just
But
do.
right, but
Yeah,
it's diminishing.
yeah,
It's diminishing in
for
the
sure.
internet, and so I don't know. I just I love the idea of people who move here having to learn English,
Mhm.
and I love the idea if we pick up and move to Italy that we have to learn Italian,
Right,
and I don't see anything wrong with that.
right.
I don't see anything wrong with that. I see that as respect for culture or identity or whatever. And I don't know, but of all the battles that people could fight, uh, that's it's okay to be proud to be Italian or proud to be Mexican or
Amen.
proud to be American. And I mean, in so much as not pride in the sinful way, but you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. And excuse my voice, guys. I'm pushing through it today. I didn't want to miss talking to Kerry, and I'm not sick. I just sound funny. I do want to pause, though, and talk about one of our sponsors. I want to make sure and mention Bernard Farms Custom Cuts and Market. One of the main reasons I want to mention them is I want to make sure that Kerry is aware of this. Tanner has got a YouTube channel. Tanner is their oldest son, and he has got. Y'all follow Tanner. This is the cutest thing, but it's at T Bernard. You can find him, and it's one of his videos up here. It's planting 500 acres of corn in 4 days. This little kid is on the tractor, driving the tractor, helping plant.
How old
Yes.
is he?
Oh my gosh, how old is Tanner? Is he 9? Maybe. I'm not sure. I need to ask Julie. But he's the oldest of the boys, and I'm thinking I would think he's about 9 now, and he may be older, but I don't think, and he may be younger. It's hard to keep track of other people's kids' ages, but he's a little guy, and he loves farming, and he has ever since he could, follow his daddy. But she sent me, I said, what are we talking about this week? And she says, well, we're setting out our produce, finishing planting corn, taking one of our beef calves to harvest one of the beef calves. So you're going to have some fresh beef in the store this week. So many things coming up for Mother's Day, but you need to follow Tanner. He has got his own YouTube channel, and just listening to him talk is just the cutest thing. And it's for real. This kid gets out on the tractor. He does farm with his family. They're planting and getting it done. I tell them they're my hero farm family because it's hard to run a farm and make it these days, but they've diversified in such a way that they're just rocking it. They're just rock stars at it. But you can get out and see them at Bernard Farms Custom Cuts and Market. They're open 1 to 4 on Sundays. They were back open yesterday. Of course, they were closed for Easter. Their normal hours. I may do their ad again tomorrow because my voice is so bad today. But they're open from 7 to 4 Monday through Saturday and 1 to 4 on Sunday. And again, as she said, they're going to have one of the beef calves that they're going to be harvesting this week. So you're going to have fresh beef. And just get on and look at their pictures and see all this stuff. And yes, follow Tanner on his YouTube channel because it is just so cute and so fun. Love that family. Get out and see them. Bernard Farms Custom Cuts and Market, one of our new sponsors here on One Street Over. Senator Kerry Roberts is in the house, and we don't have him but just for about 10 more minutes. So what do you want to make sure people know about the legislative session that just ended?
I think here's what I get asked a lot about. I get asked about the Education Freedom Act of 2025, which we did back in the beginning of session. It's important for people to understand. So the Education Freedom Act provides scholarships so that kids can basically leave a public school and go to a private school. a couple of thoughts on that. First of all, the we have a constitutional mandate to educate kids, and if you look at our Constitution, it goes back to 17, the beginning of our state, and in 1796. But we didn't have public schools back then. In fact, most people don't realize this, but when public schools became common,
Mm.
wasn't until the early 1900s, like the 1920s, I think. So what do we do for 100 years?
Well, you need to talk to Bill Jones. His aunt, was it your Aunt Bill? I think it was your aunt or your grandmother. I can't remember. Maybe his grandmother ran a school.
Yeah.
They built her a school and she ran a school.
Yeah.
But that's how you did. My grandfather did that. But that you just ran schools.
We basically, and the state helped fund these things,
Mhm.
not in their entirety, but the state helped fund them.
Right.
So we have a constitutional mandate to educate children, and I believe the first, I want to say, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but public schools was really the 1920s,
Mhm.
1925 maybe, when public schools started becoming a thing. And so up until for about 75 years, as these schools became institutionalized and we turned them into local education association school districts, built schools, and it became institutionalized learning. And in many of our counties, we have a tremendous amount of success in educating children. And then in some of our counties, we fail in an epic manner. Now, the reasons for that failure are kind of complicated, and there's plenty of blame to go around. It could be, they tend to be inner city schools are where you have the greatest failure. So you have lack of a family, lack of a mom and dad, so on, in the household, and so on and so forth. Lack of parental involvement. But most of these schools that fail dramatically are in Shelby County and Davidson County. And so in trying to address our constitutional mandate that we educate children, we have to ask the question, what can we do different in Davidson County and Shelby County? But here's the problem. The state legislature is not supposed to create laws that don't have a statewide impact, right?
Mhm.
So we're not county commissioners. We're not city aldermen. We're supposed to pass laws that impact the entire state of Tennessee. So that makes it very difficult to single out, the problems that a county has and solve its problems. So the way that you go about doing that is you look at underperforming schools, which is what we did during the early part of the Lee administration, is we targeted the schools that were underperforming, and you had to be a student at one of those schools in order to be eligible for something. Well, that worked fairly well, and so they expanded this with the Education Freedom Act, and I'm going to have to say it kind of surprises me that it passed, but it did, because I was saying a few years ago, people would say, well, it's a slippery slope, and if you do this now, we'll do more later, and lo and behold, we did more later. But it's only 20,000. So out of 1 million kids in Tennessee, this only impacts 20,000. So there is a scholarship for kids, and basically it creates two things of note. Number one is it gives the parents the money that can be used for tuition fees or whatever, putting their kid elsewhere. Number one. Number two, it doesn't take any money from the public schools. So it doesn't change the funding formula for a public school. Now, you could argue whether that's right or wrong, but I would say let's keep it all in context. It's only 20,000, and for a lot of the sky is falling talk in the public education world, that's not going to happen. It's not going to change people's funding, and there's a lot of mechanisms built into that. So why would you do this?
So,
Why-
20,000 kids that can do this.
Right.
And what are the parameters for that?
It's two. We don't have to.
Okay.
So it's a there's a lot of limits and boundaries built around it. You know, the school has to be eligible to receive it, and some schools are not going to want to be eligible. A school can maintain their independence if they do it, but anyway, it's the bottom line is that it was try to take a really thoughtful approach to make this available to kids who need it most. And this is what I want to say. So all three of our kids went to Robertson County Schools: Kreisel, Springfield Middle, later Innovation Academy, and Springfield High School. And our house was kind of the gathering spot for a lot of the kids. And so over the years, we watched our children and their friends and kind of noted the educational experience that all these kids had. And as our kids have stayed in touch with these friends, we've sort of seen what's happened, now that they're 22, 25, and 29 years old. And let me just say that even within our limited sample, a public school is not for every child. And it may be that this public school is not for that child, and they need to go to that public school.
Right.
But sometimes a kid needs to be in a smaller classroom where they can get more attention, and that's what gets the best possible outcome. Education has, by and large, become a one-size-fits-all. That's very tragic. I'm not an advocate of federal mandates for education, and I'm not an advocate for state mandates on education. I've said this over and over again. If Robertson County wants to have good schools, if Cheatham County wants to have good schools, if Dixon County wants to have good schools, all my counties, it's up to the county. It's up to the county. And just like we don't like the federal department, of education giving us money with strings attached, I don't think the state of Tennessee ought to do it. And we elect a school board. That school board appoints a director of schools. Director of schools hires principals. Principals, hire teachers. And we ought to hold those people accountable for what they do. And if they don't have a good work product, then get rid of them and get somebody else. But the problem is the federal government steps in and says, you're not doing it the way that the president wants it. And then the State Department steps in and says, you're not doing it the way the governor wants it. And what I'm saying is it's up to the people of Robertson County to hold their school district accountable. And we ought to get out of the business of mandating all this stuff. Now,
Right.
people, the chamber, and I'm referring to this as a national chamber, not Robertson County Chamber. They come along, they say, well, we want states to compare. If someone's moving from North Carolina to Tennessee, they need to know how those schools compare. All right, well, Google it. Don't, because look at what you've done. Look at this grave injustice you've done. Are you teaching students, or are you trying to accomplish test scores? I will never forget walking into McEwen Elementary and having a teacher burst into tears and say, I used to love this job because I love my students, and now all I see are test scores.
Yep.
Every legislator ought to have been there.
Yeah.
And just say, I used to be able to do what my kids needed.
Right.
And you know what? Let teachers teach.
Amen.
And if you don't have a good teacher, fire them and hire a good one.
Mm-hmm. And I've got a lot of good friends in the education system.
But wait, stop.
Wait,
I have to say
okay.
one other thing. But if they're a really good teacher, do everything in your power to reward them
Yes.
and keep them so that they get appreciated for what they're doing. And let me just say this. Every teacher in Robertson County knows who the good ones and the bad ones are, because many of those teachers have had kids who've gone through school, and they know which teacher they want their kid to have.
Yes.
And they know which teacher they don't. So the principals, the director of schools, the other teachers, they know the good ones and they know the bad ones. And you know what? It ought to be just like any other job. If you're not performing up to expectation, we're going to try and work with you. But there may come a point in time where we just say, you know what? We're going to free up your future and let you do something else because this is not your cup of tea.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. But the problem is because we're trying to standardize all this stuff, we have basically shackled the really good teachers. You know, I think about Dead Poets Society. I always think about that. The unconventional ones who know how to reach a child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's what we want. And I remember for Mr. Lair that I had in English my sophomore year in high school, he was one of those teachers who just knew how to speak to a child.
Right.
And but we didn't take all these tests.
Yeah.
And I could argue quite effectively that standardized testing has not led to better education, better learning, better citizenship, better fill in the blank. Let teachers teach. Okay. I don't get to be king for a day, and I'm sorry I interrupted you, but
it's
that's
okay
that's
because
another one of those.
we're in the middle of our testing right now. We're in the middle of our testing cycle right now, and
God bless you. That's all I can say.
well, it's not. I don't have to do it because
I
I'm
know
a
you
TK.
don't. Yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
I'm
know,
a technical.
But for the ones who are,
Yeah.
I'm sorry we did that to you.
Yeah, and I do,
really
and
am,
I
yeah.
love my colleagues, and I just want to hug them when they're having to go through this because being a CTE teacher I get to do all kinds of interesting things with the kids, and I don't have that EOC.
And let me
thing
tell you,
hanging over me. And I just want to give them a hug,
and all this
'cause it's
stupid
hard.
stuff like they're not
Yeah.
supposed to look at it. I mean, we get these anonymous phone calls from saying, "Do you realize there's two answers to this test question, but I can't tell you that because I wasn't supposed to look at the test."
Yeah, it's insane.
Stupid stuff like that. It's like,
Yeah.
seriously?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand what happened here.
Yeah.
I understand that we had 147 school systems in Tennessee, and some of them were underperforming. And so what we did was we passed laws for everybody, and somebody thought it would be a good idea to have all this standardized. What I think is a good idea, here's what I think is a great idea. Hire great teachers.
Amen. And then pay
and let them
Yeah.
teach.
Yeah.
And by the way, teachers get a $2,000 pay
Right.
increase. That's
Right.
something else that was in the budget. I'm
We
sorry.
saw
I gotta
that.
go.
I know
Yeah,
you need to
yeah,
go, and it's
okay.
past time what you even told me. So, and I think you need to pay math and science and some of these really tough subjects. I think you need to pay them more, quite frankly.
I'll come back next month.
That sounds good. We'll talk to you more.
All right.
Love you, brother. That's Senator Kerry Roberts, and I hope y'all will excuse my voice. I didn't want to miss seeing him. He is a dear friend who I have a lot of respect and love for, and so I just wanted to get a chance to connect with him. I probably should have called Lee Marie in today because my voice is kind of shot. But here's the thing. We've got some things we need to tell you about before we wrap up our time together. Do not forget that this Thursday, and thank you, Lee Marie, for really, drawing this out to me and reminding me, this is the National Day of Prayer. Guys, man, if we'll just get on our knees before the Father and just say, give us another chance at this, we'll get another chance at it. But we've got to be sincere, and we have got to not just say that that's what we're going for. We've got to live it, and be praying over our nation. National Day of Prayer will be observed in the schools too, with FCA through the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We are usually able to do that. I'll be here, so I won't be able to be with them. But I know I was talking to Miss Gregory, and I think our plan is at Springfield, or my goodness, I'm so sorry, y'all. Greenbrier is to be out by the flagpole or be outside if the weather will permit on Thursday. But otherwise, they'll have their weekly huddle in the auditorium at Greenbrier. Now, in Springfield, they're going to have a National Day of Prayer observance on the courthouse steps. This is going to be at 7:30 a.m. until 8:15. This is the 74th Annual National Day of Prayer. And again, it's this Thursday. You've got Mayor Billy Vogel's going to be there. City Mayor Buzzy Poole will be there. And you're going to have a chance to do some worship. It's going to be a wonderful thing. But that's at 7:30 on our courthouse steps this Thursday, weather permitting. If for some reason there's bad weather, they'll be in the downstairs area there at Crossroads Christian. That's where Lee Marie is doing her dance classes now. And she also wanted me to remind you that you've got a chance to do some working out. If you would like to check that, I can't find the flyer now, Lee Marie. I'll do that in just a second. But you can start your week, getting some exercise if you would like to come out and join them at, they've got Well in the Square. They've got Cindy's class there, right there, just off of the square that you can go in and join her. But it's Well on the Square, and I think at 10 a.m. Cindy Norton's class is where you can go and join them, and it's $10, and just a great time to enjoy spending some time with others. Our sponsor that we've got to make sure and touch on before we wrap up our time together, one that's been with us the longest, full-time sponsor, Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty. I was seeing where there was a house. I was looking at Barry's site yesterday, and they had dropped the price on something. So that's, if you're looking at housing, if you're looking at different properties, and you think, man, they're just a little bit out of my budget, keep an eye on them, because sometimes people will put something out there and they're thinking, I got it priced a little bit too high, and they'll back off a little bit. And there was a house in Nashville that I think Barry had that they dropped the price on a little bit. And then there's another house I'm looking right now at Rebecca's site, and there's a property that's back on the market. And it's just, you just need to be watching this constantly, because as interest rates fluctuate, housing prices will drop. When's a good time to buy? As they'll say, always, anytime when there's a piece of property that you're looking at, because if the interest price is high, the price will be a little bit lower. If the interest price go down, the price for the property is going to go up. That's just the way it works. Now, if you want to connect with them, you can call Rebecca's number. It's 615-504-7425, 615-504-7425, or you can go to sellwithbecky.com, sellwithbecky.com, or BUYRobertsonCounty.com. They are part of the Exit team still. They started a new branch in the tree a couple of years ago. They were with the Garden Gate team for many, many years, but they've just got a great reputation here, great history in the real estate market. You can sit down and talk with them at the Kilgore Station Bluegrass Festival coming up May 16th and 17th. I am so excited about it. It's going to be a great time. And if you've never been to our Bluegrass Festival, you got to be there. We'll be giving you a lot more details here as we get closer and closer. We're just a few weeks out right now. Talk to Barry and Rebecca there, or call them anytime. Again, that number 615-504-7425, 615-504-7425 for Barry and Rebecca Richards. Exit Prime Realty. When you talk with them, please always let them know. A lot of great things going on this week, guys.
Hey, this is Adam Crabb with the Gaither Vocal Band, and you are listening to one of the best Southern gospel stations, WSG.
They tell me of a land, a wonderful place where Jesus shows his smiling face, and they tell